Before we move on to understanding equilibrium in the labor market, we're going to take a little aside here to understand some different types of unemployment. So we defined unemployment, or someone is unemployed, if they don't have a job and they're currently looking for work. So in this learning objective, we're trying to discover or understand what the different types of unemployment are. Now we're going to break these down ultimately into 4 types, and here are 3 of them. So the first one, what we call voluntary unemployment, is actually not unemployment at all. Okay, so voluntary unemployment is you don't want to work at the current wage. Right, so we just developed the labor supply curve, and at a particular wage, a certain amount of people aren't going to want to work at that wage. The opportunity cost of working, the leisure time, is too high relative to the wage. So these people are willingly not going to participate in the labor market. So it's really technically not unemployment at all. These people are not in the labor force. So when we saw in our previous pie graph in the first learning objective that there was 95 million people of potential workers that weren't in the labor market, they're voluntarily what we say unemployed or not in the labor force. Now, of course, a lot of people that aren't unemployed currently don't want to be unemployed. They're involuntarily unemployed. And involuntary unemployment can happen for several reasons. So one reason for involuntary unemployment is what we call frictional unemployment. And that's simply that it takes time to find a job. Right? So I have to submit an application to the employer. The employer has to process all of the applications they receive. They have to go through, make a list of good candidates. They have 1 round of interviews, potentially a second round of interviews. And it's going to take typically at least 2 weeks to find a job, even if it goes well in the first go of applications. Oftentimes it can take a month or more in order to find a job, even in a good labor market. So frictional unemployment simply arises from the time it takes to find a job, the application process and everything that goes along with that. And so that's going to cause people to be unemployed for a period of time involuntarily. I want to work, it's just going to take me time to get there. The other type of involuntary unemployment here is what we call structural unemployment. And structural unemployment arises because the quantity of labor supplied persistently exceeds the quantity of labor demanded. At the current market wage. Now, as you probably have a sense in equilibrium, that doesn't quite make sense, right? The wage, the equilibrium price of labor, should adjust so that the quantity of labor supplied equals the quantity of labor demanded. In structural unemployment, that isn't going to occur. And it's not going to occur, as we'll see here, because of something we call wage stickiness, or wage rigidity, which causes the wage to not move to where it needs to be in equilibrium. Okay, so working with those, the natural rate of unemployment is sort of the standard or typical unemployment rate. So the natural rate of unemployment is the unemployment rate I'll say that typically occurs. Which means more or less we only have frictional and some structural unemployment. Which sometimes are 2 forms of unemployment that we can't do anything to get rid of. They're just part of the economy. And so, in the U.S. economy, that tends to be somewhere in the 4% range right now. So it used to be a little bit higher, but given the way the economy has been going, we think that's somewhere around 4%. So the unemployment rate right now is about 3.5%. At least it was before this current situation in March has taken place with the coronavirus. So we'll see where it goes from there. So that's the natural rate of unemployment, where the unemployment rate sort of should be if we only have frictional and structural unemployment. So cyclical unemployment is the difference between the actual unemployment rate and this natural rate. So cyclical unemployment is the actual unemployment rate minus the natural rate. And so when the economy is doing well, the cyclical unemployment is going to be negative. Because the actual unemployment rate will be below the natural rate. So if our natural rate of unemployment is 4%, and right now we had a 3.5% unemployment rate, we see that we have minus 0.5% in cyclical unemployment. So the economy is doing well. If the economy is not doing so well, then the cyclical unemployment rate is going to be positive. So if the unemployment rate were to go up to, say, 10%, so not well, which is what we're likely to see here in the next coming weeks, then we have positive cyclical unemployment of 6%. And so the cyclical unemployment and the natural rate are a way for us to tell, is the labor market doing well or not well relative to where it should be if we only had the standard types of unemployment. So what I want you to do is to review these different types of unemployment, try to get a sense for what drives each one, frictional, structural, and cyclical, and answer this question on Learning Objective 5 on Canvas. And once you feel comfortable with that, then you can move on to the next part, Learning Objective 6, where we put this model together in equal